Now I'm going to demonstrate some more tools and techniques in Tinkercad. The first thing I'm going to do is make a copy so that I'm working from that. And I'll give it a name. In this case, it's going to be multiple, and you'll see why in a minute. Now for this, I want just my face and head. So I'm going to drag out a box that's shaded gray, so I know it's going to subtract. Drag that out and move that up so that most of that is going to be cut off. I'll select everything and group. Tap the D key to drop the model to the bed. I'm going to drag out another box. This time I want to be looking straight down. I don't want this perspective view. On the left-hand side, click orthographic view. I'm going to hold down my shift key and increase the size of this cube. And now I'm going to rotate it 22.5, and I can do that precisely. I'll focus in so you can see better. I'm grabbing these arrows here, and when I do, I have a ruler that the mouse will snap to, 22.5, 45, and etc. But I'm going to keep it at 22.5 degrees. And now I want to place this so that the back part of the head intersects the cube about halfway from side to side. Now I'm going to click the duplicate icon at the top of the screen. An exact duplicate of the cube has been created. It's on top of the pre-existing cube, so you can't see it, but you can trust that it's there. While it's still selected, I'm going to click mirror, and I'm going to choose to mirror it this way. And now I'm going to use my arrow keys to move the duplicate cube over and zoom in. I want them to intersect as precisely as I can. There's a tiny little gap there, so maybe I'll move this one back a fraction. Okay, what I'd like to do is create a sort of pie slice effect. So now that those pieces are in place, I'll select everything and group. I'll tap the F key to zoom in on this shape. All right, now I'm going to click duplicate again to duplicate the face. I'm going to rotate the duplicate 22.5, and while it's still selected, don't click off it yet. I'm going to move it over so those points are joining together in the same spot. And now if I click duplicate again, notice that this tool is not only a duplicate, but it will repeat. So it's going to duplicate the moves that I just made. It will make a copy of that model, and it will also move it. So if I click duplicate and repeat again, and 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 again, it makes a model in the round. Now this is not joining precisely, and that's because my spacing was a little off. So I'd like it a little bit better than that. So I'm going to undo the last several until I have 180 degree. So you can see there's a slight mismatch there, but that's fine. So I'm going to stick with that, click and drag everything that I have and group it. Now look at it from the top. Now I'm going to rotate it 22.5 degrees, so I know this should be a straight line, but we can see that it's off a little bit. And I'll fix that by dragging out another cube and just very slightly, see, I want to slice off a little bit of that one and that, so that'll create a nice straight edge. Make sure you pull this all the way up so it cuts everything, select and group. Now I'll click top to look at it from the top. I'll click duplicate, mirror, and flip over the copy and then move the copy over so that it's intersecting the other one. And I'm looking at the pattern that these chins are making, and this space is a little bit more than the other, so I'm going to rotate that just a little bit, move it down, just fine-tuning so that it looks more or less the way I want. Now I'll select everything and group. Now if I look at it from the bottom, there's a little hole there. With everything selected, if I tap the T key to make it transparent, you can see there's a little interior space there that shouldn't be there. So that's easy enough to fix. I'll tap the T key again to make it solid. And I'm just going to drag out a cylinder, make sure that it's big enough to cover that little hole and tall enough so that I can see what's going on. I'll turn that transparent again so that I can make sure that I'm covering that hole. And I'm not going to be too precise about this because I'm going to do some more work later. So I'm going to click on the faces and tap the D key to make sure that this model is flat on the surface. And I'm going to tap the cylinder and tap the D key to make sure that it is flat on the surface as well. Now I'll click and drag to select everything and group. Now if I rotate around and look, you can see that there's no small hole on the bottom anymore. So that's good. I'll tap the T key to make everything solid again. And the reason I'm not worried about that cylinder sticking up is because I'm going to cut off the tops of the heads so that it has a flat top surface. I'll drag out a square, make sure that it's big enough to cut everything, raise it up, and you can tell by this shadow here where it's going to cut into the head. So let's say about that much. I need to make sure this cube is big enough to cut off all of the cylinder as well. I'll check it from the top just to make sure that's looking symmetrical the way that I want it. Now I'll select everything and group. Okay, that's looking good so far. Now the last thing I want to do is to make this hollow, a kind of container, so I can put things in it. So I'll look at it from the top. This is not circular. You can see it's sort of oval shaped, but I'm still going to drag out a cylinder. And if I focus in on the cylinder and look at it from the side, you can see that the sides are rough. I would like this to be nice and smooth. So I'm going to use the sides slider and move that all the way to the right to make it nice and smooth. I want to make this taller. Now I'll click top and move this over and focus. I'll make this bigger. Change the shapes so that it's more elliptical. I'm just doing this by eye, moving this around. And if the shape is snapping too far one way or the other for you, remember that you can come down to the snap grid and change that. You can turn it completely off. I'm going to change it to 0.1, just so that should be enough fine detail. And I'm just eyeballing this so that it looks like it's roughly in the middle. I'd like that to be a little bigger, the hole. Actually, I'm going to try selecting everything and choosing center to see if that does a better job. Yeah, actually, it does better than my doing it by feel. Now, remember that this shape is all the way to the bottom. So if I turn it into a hole and group with the heads, it's going to cut a hole out of the bottom, which is not the effect I want. So instead, I'm going to click this black arrow and drag the cylinder up, let's say about 4 millimeters. So that will leave a solid bottom to the shape. So now I'm going to select everything and click group one last time. Now that the model is done, I'll move it to the middle. On the left-hand side, I'll select perspective view again and home, and there we have it. All that remains now is to export as an STL. In my downloads folder, I can see the model that I just downloaded, and we're ready to slice and print. And here's the printed model.